The Galactic Council had been in session for 73 cycles when Ambassador Zixtal of the Hegemony finally spoke the words that would echo through history. The humans are cheating. In the crystalline amphitheater of Nexus Prime, representatives from 47 species turned their various appendages, optical sensors, and consciousness nodes toward the human delegation. The humans sat in their designated section, looking remarkably calm for beings accused of violating the sacred rules of engagement that had governed interstellar warfare for millennia. Captain Sarah Chen, the human representative, stood slowly. Her bipedal form seemed almost primitive compared to the floating energy beings of Altair or the crystalline hive minds of the collective, yet something in her posture made the entire assembly fall silent. "Ambassador Zixtal," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators, "could you be more specific about these alleged violations?" Zixtal's tentacles writhed with indignation, the bioluminescent patterns on his skin flashing angry crimson. "Your species has systematically ignored every established protocol of civilized warfare. You attack at night during your enemy's rest cycles. You use biological weapons, your own bacteria and viruses against species, with no immunity. You employ psychological warfare that drives entire populations to madness. And most egregiously, you refuse to surrender when mathematically defeated." A ripple of agreement spread through the assembly. The Hegemony had been at war with humanity for only 18 standard months, yet their casualty reports read like horror stories. Entire battle fleets had been decimated not by superior firepower, but by tactics so unorthodox they bordered on insanity. Captain Chen nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And tell me, Ambassador, when your forces invaded the Sol system, did you issue a formal declaration of war as per Galactic Council protocols?" Zixtal's skin flushed purple. "The Hegemony does not negotiate with primitive species. We offered you the standard terms: surrender, accept client status, pay tribute. Which we declined." "Which you declined, yes. So we implemented Standard Pacification Protocol 7. Chen smiled, and somehow that expression sent chills through beings who had never felt cold. "Standard Pacification Protocol 7. Let me make sure I understand. That's where you blockade a system, target military installations with precision strikes, and wait for the population to surrender when faced with superior technology. Correct?" "Precisely. It's been used successfully on over 200 primitive worlds. And how many casualties did you expect to inflict using Protocol 7? Zixtal consulted his datapad. Projections indicated minimal loss of life. Perhaps 2 to 3% of your population, mostly military personnel. Very humane by galactic standards. Chen walked toward the center of the amphitheater, her footsteps echoing in the silence. "Here's what you didn't understand about humans, Ambassador. We don't have standard anything. We've never had the luxury of fighting fair." She activated a holographic display that showed a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. "This is Earth. To most species in this assembly, it would be classified as a Class 12 death world. Gravity, nearly double galactic standard. Atmospheric pressure that would crush most of you. Weather systems that regularly produce winds capable of leveling cities. Tectonic activity that reshapes continents. And that's before we mention the predators." The display shifted, showing creatures that made the assembly recoil in horror. Massive carnivores with razor teeth, microscopic organisms that could kill in hours, plants that dissolved flesh on contact. "Every single day for millions of years," Chen continued, "our ancestors had to fight for survival against odds that would make your military computers recommend immediate evacuation. We didn't develop civilization despite our world trying to kill us. We developed it because our world was trying to kill us." Ambassador Veltar of the Peaceful Coalition raised a crystalline appendage. But surely, Captain Chen, you must understand that civilized warfare requires rules. Without them, we descend into barbarism. Chen turned to face the coalition representative. Tell me, Ambassador Veltar, what do you call it when a technologically superior force arrives uninvited in your home system, demands your surrender, and begins bombing your cities when you refuse? That's standard expansion protocol. It's been accepted galactic law for species that never had to evolve beyond it. Chen's voice grew harder. You want to know why we fight at night? Because on Earth, night hunters were the most dangerous. You want to know why we use biological weapons? Because we are biological weapons. Every human carries millions of organisms that have been at war for eons. You want to know why we don't surrender when mathematically defeated? Because mathematics doesn't account for desperation, creativity, or the simple fact that we'd rather die free than live as slaves. The holographic display changed again, showing battle footage from the war. Hegemony ships, sleek and efficient, engaged with ramshackle human vessels that seemed held together by hope and determination. But the human ships moved in ways that defied tactical doctrine, struck from impossible angles, and when destroyed, often took their attackers with them in final acts of calculated vengeance. You called us cheaters, Chen said, addressing the entire assembly. But we're not cheating. We're simply playing a game you've never had to learn. You've had the luxury of civilized warfare because you've never faced extinction. You've had the privilege of following rules because no one ever threatened to erase your entire species from existence. She paused, letting her words sink in. The day you attacked Earth, you declared war on a species that learned to fight by battling a planet that spent 4 billion years trying to perfect the art of killing. You brought rules to a fight against beings who never had any. Zixtal's skin had shifted to deep purple, a sign of profound distress among his species. But if we abandon the rules of war, where does it end? What stops conflict from consuming the galaxy? Chen's smile returned, but now it seemed almost sad. You stop it the same way we did on Earth, Ambassador. You learn that the strongest survive, not by being the most aggressive, but by being the most adaptable. You learn that cooperation isn't weakness, it's the ultimate evolution of strength. She gestured to the human delegation behind her. We didn't come to this galaxy to conquer it. We came because we were curious about our neighbors. But when you decided we were primitive and needed to be subjugated, you made a fundamental error. You assumed that because we were younger, we were weaker. You forgot that sometimes the young survive precisely because they're willing to do what the old won't. The amphitheater fell into contemplative silence. For the first time in galactic history, the assembled species began to question not just their military tactics, but their fundamental assumptions about civilization itself. Captain Chen returned to her seat, but her final words echoed through the chamber. We never stopped playing fair, ladies, gentlemen, and consciousness nodes of various dimensional states. We simply never agreed to play by your rules in the first place. The vote to end the war was unanimous. But more importantly, it marked the beginning of a new era, one where the galaxy learned that sometimes the greatest teachers come from the most unlikely places. And that was the day the Deathworlders reminded the universe that evolution never stops, not even in the stars.